Hello, dear friends. This is a video response to my subscriber Dubo. So he had two questions. The first one was, how do you learn a language that has few online resources, such as online dictionaries, if you have some ambition to level up and make a diffuse usage of it, say for different issues subjects. The second one is, how do you learn a language that belongs to the same language family you already know, in comparison to starting a completely new one that is not related to any language you already studied? So the first one, I can barely speak for myself because I've never dealt with a rare language except, let's say, Moroccan dialect. But the way I went about it is just to speak to people. I already knew standard Arabic, and modern standard Arabic is very different from Moroccan when you have a first glance at it. But after a while, you realize that you can speak it without knowing why you can speak it, because you should surround yourself by native speakers and try to ask, how do you say this, how do you say that, and so on. I actually saw someone who is from Niger, I think in English you say Niger, and he's working in a Chinese supermarket, and he was surrounded by native Chinese speakers who cannot speak any other language, so he learned by asking, how do you say that, how do you say this, and so on. And after a few years, he was able to hold a very decent conversation in Chinese. And so everyone learns in another way. I cannot recommend a special method for those languages that have few online resources. You have to find resources, and if they don't exist, you have to surround yourself by the people and ask them and keep in touch with them and try to learn from them. That's the way I learned Moroccan dialect, not from books, because there are very few books to learn from. And you can also learn from TV, if you can watch TV in the local language with the context. If you have some basic knowledge, you can learn from it. Now for your second question, I tend to stick to the same approach no matter if I'm learning a language that is related to a language family that I already know. For instance, I learned Spanish, and then I applied the same method for Italian. It worked. Then I tried to apply another method, a method for German, but actually German I've never learned it properly. So a few days before going to Germany, I decided to dedicate 2-3 days and to speed up the process by doing, I don't know, 20 lessons a day, since it's very close related to Dutch, which I know to a fairly high level. It is not so complicated, but the thing is that if you learn a language quickly, you will forget it quickly. It's just the way it is. So I think I will not apply a different technique for exotic languages or languages that are close related to any language that I already speak. Like I learned Bulgarian first. This was my first Slavic language. Then I learned some Serbian. I dabbled with Serbian, and then I learned seriously Russian. And for Russian, I applied the same technique, and it's working. So I don't really have a different method for languages that have a lot of cognates that with the language that I already speak. So to sum it up, to learn any language, what I do is that I begin with a basic course with a lot of dialogues like Asimil, to get the gist of the language and to feel, to have develop a feel for the language and knowing how structures are working. Now, after completing ASIMIL, I move on to a second beginner course, and I begin to see clearly how it works, and the same material is covered in almost all beginner books. So you have a lot of words that come again, and the more you see those basic words, the more you will be able to use it when in real conversation with a native speaker. I think it's the way I do. And then when I reach an intermediate level, how could I define this level? It's actually when I can read a long text, not a very specific text, let's say a text from a magazine with a dictionary. If I can do that, it means that I already achieved the intermediate level. So I measure my level with my understanding of the language, not my ability to speak it, because speaking is the ultimate goal, and you have to build the input before you can actually produce anything in the language. All polyglots agree and say that you have to concentrate on, you have to focus on input first, and then you will reach an intermediate level. You keep doing what you are doing, like reading a lot of text, looking for unknown words, and then you will move to more and more challenging texts, and finally you can move to books. And this is also another resource, and you should also listen a lot, watch TV in the language, surround yourself, and basically travel to the country will enable you to convert all those words that are still passive in your mind into an active phase. So you will be able to do it if you do a lot of input. If you don't do this input in a systematic way, it's not going to work. So everyone has his own method, and but I think all language learners have something in common. It's that they get a lot of input before producing anything. I think you can't do anything else but just reading and listening. It's the most powerful way to acquire new words, and I highly recommend you to do this. If you have other questions, I'll try to answer your questions. You can write it below, and see you soon. Bye bye.